In 1963, a former McDonnell Douglas engineer named Chan Thomas published a book that was said to concern every single person on Earth. However, before most people even had the chance to see it, the CIA classified it as a secret. It wasn't until 2013 that the book was declassified under the U.S. Freedom of Information Act and made available on the CIA's official website. Yet, it took another 6 years, until 2019, before the public could finally see the full content of this mysterious book. So, what shocking revelations did this book contain that made the CIA lock it away for more than 50 years? Some claim that it speaks of the beginning of civilization and the ultimate end of humanity. The Adam and Eve story. Chan Thomas was a mysterious figure. Although originally an electrical engineer, he later ventured into fields such as paleontology, geology, and anthropology, eventually becoming an expert on UFOs. After the Adam and Eve story was banned by the CIA, Thomas spent years revising and updating it with the latest theories and evidence. In 1993, he managed to republish the book, passing the scrutiny of censors. In his work, Thomas presented evidence for a catastrophic event known as a polar shift. A phenomenon he claimed was cyclical, occurring periodically throughout Earth's history. Each time it happened, it triggered a cataclysm capable of wiping out nearly all life on the planet. The few survivors would be left to rebuild civilization from scratch, just like Adam and Eve. According to Thomas, Earth has already undergone at least 5 such cycles of destruction and renewal. And we are currently living in the 6th advanced civilization. He speculated that there may have been even more ancient, highly advanced civilizations before these 6, but due to the immense passage of time, most evidence has vanished, especially as entire continents have disappeared beneath the waves. The theory of polar shifts. Although Thomas wasn't the first to propose the idea of a shifting Earth, his claims built upon earlier theories. In 1958, American professor and writer Charles Hapgood published a book titled Earth's Shifting Crust, a key to some basic problems of Earth science. Hapgood suggested that at times, the Earth's rotation speeds up, causing the continents to rearrange themselves. His theory was ridiculed as pseudoscience by mainstream geologists, but it had one notable supporter, Albert Einstein. In fact, Einstein was so intrigued by Hapgood's ideas that he wrote the foreword to his book. 10 years later, in 1968, Hapgood published The Path of the Pole, refining his earlier theories with further research. He suggested that the Earth's poles were in constant motion. Once again, mainstream science dismissed his claims. But today, we know that both of Hapgood's theories were correct. Continents do drift, and the poles do shift. Sometimes, what is labeled as pseudoscience is simply an idea ahead of its time. Hapgood even speculated that around 9,600 BCE, approximately 11,600 years ago, Earth underwent a rapid polar shift of 15 to 40 degrees, causing dramatic climate changes worldwide. Thomas, however, went further. In the Adam and Eve story, he argued that such shifts have occurred multiple times throughout history, and that they happen in less than a single day. The catastrophe, a world engulfed in chaos. Thomas vividly described the aftermath of a polar shift. It would begin with a deep, nearly imperceptible rumble. Then, an ear-splitting roar would follow, as the ground trembled violently. Mountains would sway like blades of grass in the wind, and terrifying storms would rage. In California, the Pacific Ocean would rear back, forming a tsunami over 3,200 meters, 10,500 feet high, rushing toward the coast at unimaginable speed. Los Angeles and San Francisco would be obliterated in an instant. The ocean would surge across the entire continent, reaching the East Coast in just 2 hours, leaving nothing but ruins behind. Europe wouldn't be spared either. The Alps, Pyrenees, and Ural Mountains would be compressed and pushed even higher by the pressure of incoming waters. The Sahara Desert and West Africa would vanish beneath the waves. Winds would rip across the planet at 1,667 kilometers per hour, 1,036 miles per hour, shredding everything in their path. But why would such extreme winds occur? Thomas explained that the Earth spins at approximately 1,667 kilometers per hour at the equator. We don't feel it because land, water, and air all rotate together. But during a sudden polar shift, while the oceans and atmosphere continue spinning, the landmass stops. Imagine being in a speeding car that suddenly slams to a halt. You would be thrown forward with incredible force. This is what would happen to entire continents. As if earthquakes, tsunamis, and hurricane-force winds weren't enough, massive volcanic eruptions would follow. Lava would burst from the ground, igniting vast firestorms. In some places, the planet would be engulfed in flames. In others, it would be submerged beneath the ocean. Civilization, as we know it, would cease to exist. The sky itself would change. As the Earth's rotation altered, the sun would appear frozen in place, casting one half of the planet into blistering heat, while plunging the other into a deep freeze. On the cold side, temperatures would plummet to minus 180 degrees Celsius, minus 292 degrees Fahrenheit. And even the warmest regions would drop to minus 80 degrees Celsius, minus 112 degrees Fahrenheit. In just 4 hours, everything would freeze solid. The mammoth in ice. A frozen instant in time. To support his claims, Thomas pointed to an astonishing discovery. In the permafrost of Siberia, archaeologists uncovered a baby woolly mammoth, perfectly preserved. Its flesh was so fresh that it was still edible, and it even had buttercups in its mouth, flowers that only grow in warm climates. This suggested that the mammoth had been frozen instantly, along with the land it stood on. But how could tropical plants have thrived in Siberia? Unless, as Thomas suggested, Siberia was once a warm, fertile region, before a sudden pole shift moved it to its current location, freezing everything in an instant. Ancient records of a still sun. Intriguingly, ancient texts describe moments when the sun appeared to stop moving. In the book of Joshua, from the Hebrew Bible, it is recorded that Joshua commanded the sun and moon to stand still, allowing the Israelites to win a battle. If this story were purely myth, why would ancient writers invent such an impossible scene? Could it be a record of a past polar shift? The Six-Day Flood and the birth of a new world. According to Thomas, the catastrophic floods from a polar shift would last 6 days. On the 6th day, the seas would finally begin to calm. The Earth's poles would have shifted by 90 degrees. The equator would become the poles, and the poles would become the equator. The Bay of Bengal would become the new North Pole, while the Pacific Ocean off Peru would become the new South Pole. As ice caps formed at the new poles, Greenland and Antarctica, now near the equator, would transform into lush tropical paradises. If this scenario sounds familiar, it might be because it mirrors the disaster movie 2012 almost exactly. But Thomas insisted he wasn't writing science fiction. He was describing events that had already happened and would happen again. The Great Flood? History or myth? Flood myths exist in almost every culture, from Noah's Ark in the Bible to Gilgamesh's epic flood in Mesopotamian legend. The Chinese tales of Nuwa repairing the sky and Yu the Great controlling the flood tells similar stories. If it were just 1 or 2 myths, we might dismiss them as coincidence. But there are over 600 known ancient flood stories worldwide. Could they be memories of real events? According to Thomas, history has seen multiple great floods, each marking the end of an advanced civilization. Yet, mainstream science refuses to accept his claims. Because if he were right, it would mean human civilization didn't just start 6,500 years ago. It has risen and fallen many times before. And perhaps it's due for another fall.
Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Share it, because some stories are meant to be discovered together. And stay curious. I'll see you in the next chapter.